morning and welcome. Welcome to the Electric Vehicle and Autonomous Vehicle Showcase this morning for GSEM and DJPR. It's great to have you here this morning. My name is Danielle Story and I am your MC today. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the lands on which we all meet. For our Innovation Centre, I acknowledge the Wurundjeri people. For my home, the Bunurong people, and today the Tangarang people, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Today, along with all Australians, we also remember those who have served to defend Australia on Remembrance Day. Welcome to the showcase. It's fantastic to have you here, and welcome to all of our presenters and speakers as well. We've had just on 100 people register for this event, and as I do need to let you know, we are recording this session so we can have a look at it later. We're really keen to understand your opinions on the formation of a cluster in the EV and AV. We already have so much strength within the region, and what that might look like and how we might formalise that. I'm going to welcome our showcase speakers just before they jump online and present to you. Our panel, I'd like to welcome them. Jack Cormus from Textron Systems, Paul Davis from Rectifier Technologies, and E4 Falk-Williams from Cluster Navigators. And we're going to hear from them in just under an hour's time. We want your questions. We would love to understand what your questions are, and I can see you all coming online now, using the Q&A or the chat. So the chat's a chat. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Make comments on what our speakers are talking about. The Q&A, we can answer your questions, and not only, you know, we've got a fabulous moderator here in Warwick and myself. We can take questions to the panel, but also our panelists will be able to answer directly to your questions that are there. So that'll be fantastic. So for our panelists, if you've got the Q&A open, it'd be awesome if someone asks you a question. We do want this to be a connectivity event. Okay, so I want to welcome the Greater Southeast Melbourne team. We know them affectionately as GSEM. To the CEOs of the 8 Southeast councils, we really want to thank you for your contributions and your commitment to this critical sector that is formed within our region. To the Victorian Government, the Department of Jobs, Precincts and Regions, the Southeast region, thank you for your strong support too and your commitment. So I'm now going to introduce our first speaker. We've got 12, 13 people to hear from today. So get ready for some fantastic information about what's happening in our region. I'm going to actually, just before you, Ross, I'm going to introduce to you Don Fitzgerald, Investments Specialist, and Angela Krepchik, the Regional Director of Southern and Eastern Office, the Department of Jobs, Precincts and Regions of the Victorian Government, and very proudly to let you know that she is on secondment at the moment, working in the recovery for the Southeast through COVID-19, and has eked out some important time for us to talk about electric vehicle and autonomous vehicle showcase. And so I am ready for you to share your screen, Don. Fantastic. Here we go. Over to you, Angela. Welcome.
Thanks, Danielle. That was a lovely introduction. Thank you, and good morning, everyone. So basically about this project, I'm going to kick start, and then Don's going to go through some of the highlights of our study over the last couple of weeks. But basically our project is to better understand the electric vehicle and autonomous vehicle market and its capabilities in Melbourne Southeast, which is a growing sector. It's also about exploring the potential for the development of an industry cluster. So we'd love to hear from you about whether you feel that that would be beneficial. To develop it also a value proposition for future investment, or improve the promotion of EV and AV, that sector in Melbourne Southeast, and also to bring us closer together to discuss issues and challenges. So I'd like to introduce you to Don. That's the quick snapshot, who's going to go through some of the findings so far. Don.
Thank you very much, Angela. Here's a quick overview of the electric vehicle and autonomous vehicle capabilities in the Southeast. There are 5 groups of actors of the electric vehicles, and we have the passenger vehicles, which are mainly imports, although there are some limited possibilities to supply components. We have commercial vehicles, and with companies such as Volgren and SEA Electric. We have electric bikes that we have companies such as Telt that supplies bikes to the Australian Armed Forces. We have the next sector under the autonomous vehicles, which is industrial vehicles, and the off-road vehicles, which include off-road robots. And then we also have UAVs, or the unmanned aerial vehicles, with companies such as Textron, ZM2 and Swoop. With infrastructure, we have the chargers, and there we have companies and suppliers such as Evolution Australia, Lumen Freedom, the IM Group and RTL. And then we have the supply chain with specialists such as Extel, MTM, Amero, and Titomic, which have design and manufacturing capabilities. So we now look to recap the high-level findings of the study, or the look of what we have taken. So the density of activity is currently around electric vehicles, although there's some for autonomous vehicles. The market conditions, EV take-up of 5 to 10 year time frame, generation distribution capacity issues, policy settings and incentives, electric vehicle technology not suited to heavy transport, and hydrogen technology with a 10 to 15 year horizon. And we continue with a range of SMEs and capabilities that were found. Some companies forging ahead in international markets, SX listings, strong backing, they're high-end, highly skilled, highly paid. Others at an earlier stage of development with normal SME growth issues. Possible use of local assembly and manufacturing capability. And many suppliers have relevant capabilities, accreditations, but disruptive technologies need upgrading and adaptation in supply chain. There's a need to focus on next generation technologies for competitive advantage, not just to catch up to the current state of the art. Standards and regulations are evolving, training issues are there, engineering skills and vehicle service. Over to you, Angela.
So thank you, Don. There's a lot there to work through, as you can see, but today is about showcasing some of our capabilities more broadly. It's also an opportunity to develop ideas, particularly through the panel discussion, which is later on this morning. We're going to provide a report back on our findings over the last few months, including recommendations. We want to look at ways to better help industry to explore new markets or assist with the development of new technologies or connections, R&D linkages, for instance, commercialisation. And out of this, we want to propose a value proposition exclusive to Southeast. We'd like to develop an industry cluster network, and we'd like to hear your views, as I mentioned earlier, and possibly enhancing this study across Victoria based on our findings. And bottom line for us is informing good policy design. So on that note, I'll hand it back to Danielle. Thank you very much for attending. It's great to see so many people here, and I'll look forward to hearing the discussions over the next hour. Thank you.
Angela, thank you. Don, thank you. And thank you for the recap. I think it's obvious to us all here that we have some incredible capability and capacity within our Southeast region, a place that we're all really passionate about. Over to you on our webinar and our attendees. Just use the chat box for me. If you can just click on chat rather than the Q&A, there's two little buttons down the bottom. Hey, just give me, I'd love to just hear, you know, a why or a yes or a no or a yes or a maybe or a yes or tell me more about whether or not you're interested in participating in a cluster across the region, or what that might look like for you. We really want your thoughts and opinions too. So please, just in that little chat box, I'd love you to type that in there and press go. I haven't got a prize for you. Sorry, I didn't think that. Oh, fantastic. Got some people there. Yes, we'd love that. Don't hesitate. If something occurs to you partway through, we want to hear from you. Pop it in the chat box so that we can come back to it and say, hey, that's really important to that person. Let's make sure that we're including them in what we're doing. All right. time to go over to our 9 speakers who we are showcasing today. I'm going to welcome Ross Durango onto the screen at the moment and ask him to share his screen. Ross is the Head of Energy and Infrastructure from the Electric Vehicle Council. He's going to have a little bit of a chat today about what's happening at the Electric Vehicle Council. And I will let you know he's got 5 minutes to speak. We do have a little bell at about 4 minutes so that you don't get stressed if you hear it, Ross. And over to you. Lovely.
Very good. Thank you very much, Danielle. Much appreciated for the opportunity to speak to everyone today. Thanks for tuning in. Per Danielle's introduction, I'm from the Electric Vehicle Council. We're the national peak body for the EV industry. The mission is essentially to do the things necessary to accelerate the uptake of electric road transport, cars, trucks, buses, the whole lot. I'm the Head of Energy and Infrastructure. Today I'm talking about one of the many aspects of EV, which is interaction with the grid. So this slide's talking about how EVs charge. When we plug them in, where do we do that? And what does that mean for the energy networks? On the right-hand side, we're talking about high-powered DC charging. That picture's from slightly out of Melbourne. That's up around Euroa, but it's a charger that you would use if you were driving from Melbourne to Sydney and trying to do that in one day. That's going to be beyond the range of the car. You might want to stop somewhere overnight on that journey, so you need a lot of energy really quickly into the vehicle. The deployment of these sorts of things doesn't account for the majority of energy that goes into the cars because it's less convenient than charging at home, but it is necessary. And what it causes is some localized peak demand. And the challenge that creates is around tariff design. In Victoria, this is largely a solved problem through the networks who have got reasonable tariffs to support this kind of activity. On the left-hand side, we're talking about people charging their cars at home. This is going to be the majority of the energy use because it is far and away the most convenient way for a driver to charge their car. That's my car in my driveway in West Brunswick for reference. The risk here is one of temporal concentration. If we have millions of people plugging in their cars at home at about the same time of day, there's a risk there of overload when everyone plugs in their car, goes inside, turns on their stove, turns on their air conditioning. That can create an issue. There are many, many ways to address this potential peak demand problem, but consumer buy-in is going to be key to all of them. These approaches that we can use. On the left-hand side is approaches that we already use today in the energy networks to manage these challenges. Controlled loads are a little bit old school. That's your hot water system turning on at 11 o'clock at night like it has since the 1950s. Time of use tariffs. In Victoria, we have smart meters everywhere. It's easy for a consumer to get on a time of use tariff and pay as little as 10 cents a kilowatt hour overnight for energy. And of course, we have solar feed-in tariffs as well. The cheapest vehicle fuel that's available to an EV driver is the solar energy off the roof of their own house. And then you've got more advanced solutions, consumer in the loop demand response. United Energy in the East and Southeast has pioneered a lot of this work in Australia. Since 2015, they've run schemes where they'll send you a text message and say, tomorrow's going to be a bad day on the grid. If you can dial back the use, we'll pay you for doing that. And that sort of approach will work beautifully in a context of EVs. On the right-hand side is the more advanced approaches. These are the subject of arena-funded trials running all over the country today. Orchestration of chargers is where the charger is smart, talks to a cloud-based system. You plug it in when you get home, the network takes over, charges your car when it suits the network to make sure you've got a full battery the next day. And that allows for orchestration of the chargers. Even more advanced than that, we can bypass the charger entirely. The car's smart too. The network can just talk to the car and tell it what to do. Both of these approaches can also potentially solve this problem. And as I said, they're the subject of arena-funded trials running right now. All of this consideration for what does it mean for the energy network really feeds into cost. At the end of the day, we could simply duplicate the energy network and build up to a standard that we can plug all the cars in at the same time. We don't want to do that because it'll be expensive. If we consider these costs though, the introduction of EVs is going to increase by about 40% the total amount of energy required. If we can get away with increasing the network size by about 10%, because most of the usage happens off peak, that cost works out to about $20 per person per year of building that network up by that much. On the far right-hand side of this table, the savings in fuel use when you shift from petrol or diesel to electricity, even at normal grid prices, not even off-grid prices, amount to about $1,200 per year per person. So there's a huge saving to be had there even if we have to augment the network a little bit. In the middle is answering the question of what about the people who don't go to EV? And this is the beautiful bit. A shift to EVs where the charging doesn't coincide largely with peak demand saves money for everybody, because an improvement in the efficiency of how we run our networks means network costs for each kilowatt hour of energy that isn't feeding an EV fall. The savings for non-EV drivers when we shift to EVs amount to a couple $100 per year per person as well. So the goal here is we need to build more generation assets so that we have more energy. We need to minimize the amount of extra network build out we do, and there's a bunch of ways we can do it. That's my 5 minutes. I don't think we've got time in this forum for Q&A right now, but if anyone would like to hit me up on LinkedIn or shoot questions to Danielle afterwards, I'll be happy to take them.
Ross, thank you so much. And you can, there's so much information there, and I can imagine you've got so much more. If you do have questions for Ross, pop them in the Q&A. He'll answer them as we go through in the Q&A box. That's just to the left of your chat box. Don't hesitate to pop it in and Ross will be able to answer that. Or if you get stuck and you just want to put them in the chat box, we can get the questions to Ross later. Okay, thanks so much, Ross. I'd like to then now introduce to you our second speaker, Professor Maria Forsyth from the Deakin University Battery Hub. Over to you, Maria. Professor Maria, great. Looking forward to hearing from you.
Okay, just
perfect.
Good. And I'm off mute, yes. Sorry, I'm unmuted. Yes, I am.
Yeah,
you're good. We can hear you.
Sorry, I couldn't. I've got two screens. I'm confused here. Thanks, Danielle, and thank you very much. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to present on behalf of our team at Deakin University, where we have about 50 plus people working on advanced energy storage. What I want to talk about today is our Battery Technology Research and Innovation Hub, Battery Hub, which we initiated back down in Geelong about 5 or 6 years ago, specifically to look at advanced technologies and being able to prototype some of the materials that are coming out of our own labs and our collaborators' labs. So that facility has now been, I'll talk about that in a moment, been given additional funding to expand and be established in the southeast, in fact, in Burwood, not far from the university on Highbury Road. And we'll talk about what that will be in a moment. But the role of Battery Hub as we see it, we are an organisation which educates, we are a university. Nevertheless, we have a lot of interaction with industry already. And Battery Hub, we want it to be a focal point to be able to expand that interaction with industry across a number of different areas. So we'll do research, encompass our own research and industry research. We'll also want to be looking at pilot scale manufacturing of the materials that perhaps that we're developing with our collaborators and ourselves. But ultimately, we want to also be able to assist in the commercialisation of energy storage technologies, and particularly next generation beyond lithium-ion energy storage technologies. So the new facility that is it's signed off, we're just about to start building, the tender has been approved. Hopefully by December we'll start the build, and by the end of April it should be completed. That's what we promised the Victorian government. We're very thankful to the Victorian government for paying DET for giving us a substantial grant of over $5 million, and then additional money from the university to make roughly a $10 million facility. As I said, located near the Burwood campus. The actual lab spaces are going to be approximately 1,200 square metres. In that space, we're going to have a number of different activities. We're going to have activities around what we currently do down here is our existing sort of activities around small-scale prototyping, electrochemistry, developing materials. But we're also going to have a dry room and assembly line, both a smaller scale assembly line, a larger scale assembly line, to be able to make pouches from the small ones we currently make now through to the A5 size pouches. We're going to have significant testing capability as well. And the idea that we promised, if you like, the government, we hope to achieve, is we want to be able to target around 500 kilowatt hours per year production from this pilot facility. And we really want to focus around advanced technologies beyond the lithium ion, but we still can test existing technologies as well in this facility. So we're able to test current technologies also. So what do we want to do with this? Really what our aim, I guess, the team's aim and what we promised that we will achieve is we're going to build up the Victoria's role in the global supply chain of materials that go into energy storage technologies, into batteries. We have several companies we work with in the southeast, Boron Molecular, for example, with materials that they provide that go into the advanced batteries. We want to be able to look at all the way from the materials through to people manufacturing the next generation devices. We also want to be able to make bespoke batteries for customer demands, whether it be electric bikes or whatever that happens to be. want to be able to translate the IP that we develop, but also our collaborators develop and develop in the area, and really want to catalyse partnerships within the government and within the industry to try and achieve our green economy or a clean economy. In addition, because we are a university, we also work, obviously, we want to provide education, post-secondary education, not just to undergraduates and PhD students, but we also want to develop courses and training modules that can actually assist in upskilling and training people who might need to use or make new battery technologies. So very happy to talk to people afterwards if they wish. Contact me either on LinkedIn or by email or via Danielle. And thanks again for the opportunity to present our centre, Battery Hub 2.0, as we call it, the bigger baby. Thank you.
Seriously impressive. Thank you, Professor Maria Forsyth. It is impressive, and I love that tension that you're looking to find between manufacturing versus expertise. That that doing a little bit of both, which is impressive. I'm going to take that to the panel later. All right, Dixon Liao is up next, and we're going to hear from IM Group. Dixon is the General Manager of IM Group, and I know some of the things that they're doing are incredibly exciting. So Dixon, if you'd share your screen and go on ahead and continue to wow us about what you're doing.
No worries. Thanks, Danielle. Good morning, everybody. It is very exciting for me to be sharing with you quickly this morning 2 products from our IM group relating to the battery of EV and hybrid vehicles. First, we have this recently launched hybrid battery remanufacturing program where customers can now purchase remanufactured hybrid battery nationally across Australia from Injectronics. The battery packs are ready to use, a plug and play, so to speak, which has all the fittings, the components ready for installation, unlike some of the other battery packs where you may need to order additional parts for install, etc. So the customer or the workshop just need to ring a 1300 number or log into hybrid.injectronics.com.au, and Injectronics will dispatch a remanufactured battery to you. And once the remanufactured battery is installed, we can take back the old used battery in a reusable transport case. And what IM Group currently have in terms of the battery packs is for the Prius Generation 2, the Camry 40 series from about 2006 to 2011, and the Camry 50 series 2011 to 2017. And we will be expanding the model range as requested and demands received. So without this program, many of those hybrid batteries or vehicles could end up as waste, and which may or may not be properly treated as part of their end of life, the EOL. So without going to specifics for a battery, hybrid battery to work efficiently, there is a battery management system, or known as BMS, to monitor all the cells and modules. And when it detects a failure modules or cell, it registers a fault code. Usually it means that the whole battery will need to be replaced with a new one from manufacturer. But in some instances, manufacturer may be able to repair the module or cells. But what Injectronics do is that we remanufacture the battery pack from the ground up, meaning each cell is tested and verified, and combined and paired into modules, and each modules are retested, verified, and then placed in the pack, which is then retested again, verified, balanced, and before delivering to the customer or the workshop. So we approach this program with this circular economy in mind to ensure minimal drive batteries and their cells are thrown away, and in the worst case situation end up in landfill, thus ensuring a sustainable ecosystem. Next, what we have here is a very exciting new projects that are in collaboration with Sustainability Victoria, which seeks to develop a business plan for Australia, first scalable reuse and resource recovery program of retired electric lithium batteries as a byproduct of the electric vehicle industry. What this does is that in IM Group, we will create a ecosystem with our partners where the EV batteries will undergo second life cycle in a form of energy storage system for non-automotive applications before the EV batteries end up again in landfill or processed as part of EOL, end of life. This process ensures an environmentally friendly approach to reduce CO2 and other emissions while creating jobs and sustainable ecosystem. The benefit of these, SV program is not only creating jobs and potential saving of CO2, but a sustainable application of EV battery beyond initial automotive use, and thus ensuring not only a circular economy, but a sustainable, eco-friendly opportunity. So one of these battery pack has about the ESS, as we call it, the energy storage system, has about 120 kilowatt hour, but it's scalable, from about 60 to 2.4 megawatt. You can imagine, an average showroom of 40,000 kilowatt hour use a year. That's a saving of about 42.8 tons of CO2 every year. So with that concludes my presentation. Danielle, thank you.
Thank you, Dixon. That's wow. I'm so thrilled at what we've got in our Southeast region. If you've got any questions for Dixon, don't hesitate to pop them either in the Q&A or in the chat box. I can see a lot of you are putting questions in, and there. Feel free, anybody can answer. We'd love to hear more about what you're doing and what's important to you. Don't hesitate to tell us who you are and what you're doing as well, if it correlates to some of the things that you're hearing, because we really want to know. Okay, let's just move on to recording. Warwick, are you ready for us to have a fantastic recording of Aidan Kelly?
Hi, my name's Aidan Kelly, founder of XM2. XM2 was founded in 2013 with the goal of being the best drone cinematography company in the world. What started out initially for me as a hobby quickly became a passion, and now into an international business. It's taken me all around the world, from ice-capped glaciers in Iceland to the deserts of Wadi Rum, and even to crazy car chase scenes right in front of Buckingham Palace. Since then, we've established ourselves as leaders in the industry with our R&D, sales and service arm based here in Melbourne, Australia. We also have service offices in Gold Coast, Los Angeles, Atlanta and London. Some of our recent film credits include 007 No Time to Die, Mission Impossible, Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker, Fast and Furious and many, many more. Been lucky enough to work with some amazing people as well. To name drop a few: Tom Cruise, Johnny Depp, Daniel Craig, and many more. To reach this goal, we had to innovate, which led us to developing our own heavy lift drone platforms here in Melbourne to meet the needs of our customers, giving us a unique advantage internationally. To make this happen, we assembled an amazing team consisting of pilots, engineers and technicians who work closely together to create drones and accessories that we use every day on set. While film is definitely the sexy side of the business, there's also a part of the business that does not get as much of the spotlight. We have a retail drone store here in Melbourne, which sell a lot of the common brands, but also act as an outlet for sales of our own designed and manufactured products and drones sold around the world. The ability to scale to retail sales of drones and accessories was born from the capability we built to service our film clients, including rapid design, prototyping, small batch manufacturing, all done here in Melbourne. We found drones we created had other use cases in other industries such as surveying, telecommunications, defence and wildlife conservation, which is why we established XM2 Earth. XM2 Earth looks after everything outside of film and has a focus on bespoke drone design and solution provision using drones. Some recent projects include supply of heavy lift tethered drone system to Verizon Telecommunications Company in the US. We went from concept to commercial product in under 6 months, winning this contract over US-based firms. The drone system gives us unlimited flight times to allow first responders to set up rapid telecommunications network in disaster response situations. Another drone we made is a drone that installs sensors onto power poles to aid in bushfire prevention and reduce costs of insulation and higher level of safety. Also, a drone feeder system for endangered species, the pygmy possums, working with Zoos Victoria to create a feeding and flying system to spread the vital food source over hard to reach areas in regional Victoria. It's an amazing thing to be part of real wildlife conservation. I'd like to thank you today for the opportunity to show you what we do at XM2, and it's nice to know that an Australian company is sticking it to the rest of the world.
I love it. Aidan, can you pop your screen on? I just wanted to let you know that that is absolutely fantastic. Thank you. I'm not going to ask you, I really want to ask you a question. I'm not going to ask you a question about Tom Cruise, I promise. What's your favorite product? What's that you've either made or that you're dreaming of to make? What's your thing? What's your one thing that you love?
Look, we made a drone a couple of years back, and it's now a staple tool on film sets around the world. You know, we sold over 200 units worldwide, and yeah, it's been an amazing thing to go down that process and, you know, see it creating these amazing movies all over the place, and the content that's coming back and the users. So it's amazing.
That's great. Thank you. I really wanted to know the answer to that question. That's terrific. In an EV-AV cluster conversation, so what is the value of a cluster for you? I mean, what you must be working on new technology all the time. What do you see as the value?
Yeah, I mean, we're constantly trying to push the boundaries, and for us, it's always a focus on customer requirements. But what's been really useful to us in recent times is leaning on the expertise of local companies to fill the gaps which we don't actually have in terms of expertise. So it's been very useful to have this sort of access locally to talent.
Yeah, and talent, that's a really big comment as well. Hey, thank you. Thanks for your presentation. Thanks for supplying us with that video. I'm tipping there's going to be a few people who are going to watch that a couple of times because there's so much to take in there. Really grateful for your time today. If you've got any questions for Aidan, feel free to pop them in the Q&A or in the chat box, and he'll be able to answer them for you. I imagine we're going to hear a lot more from XM2 and from Aidan Kelly in the future. Thanks, Aidan.
Thanks very much for having me.
Yeah, great to have you here. All right, so it's my pleasure now to, from Stealth Electric Bikes, or from Stealth, a company that is one very well-known company. John Karambalis, it's great to have you here. You're the founder of Stealth, and I'm going to throw over to you to tell us more about the great things that you are working on. John, just unmute yourself, and then your screen is beautifully shared. Fabulous to have you here.
G'day. As Electric Bikes, I started this company back in 2008, where I wanted to quit my 9-to-5 day job. I wanted the freedom of working for myself, and now I work about 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're located in Springvale, Victoria. Currently, we employ 12 people across Australia, the US and Europe, but there's some upcoming projects that we have been working on for quite some time, which will be pushing that up to about 50 employees for 2022. And depending on how things eventuate, we probably would be 20 to 30% above that for next year, by this time next year. Our sales network spans over 30 countries across the world, from South America to Norway, Denmark, the northern regions. And our supply chain spans across Australia, the US, Europe and Asia. And probably in order of preference, it would be as you can see on the screen there. Currently, we have 4 products, but time next year that will have expanded to about 12 products, which we're anticipating will quadruple our production for 2022. This was the bike that started it all, the B52. It started off as a hobby and kind of snowballed into what it is today. With this bike, we started a bit of a cult following across the world. You can buy some of our older bikes for almost the price of one of the new ones because they're so sought after. Our problem has not been sales to date, it's been production and capability, but we are working on that at the moment. Initially, the bikes were sold as an off-road recreational vehicle, which they did very well at. but more recently, we've got the attention of some of the defence forces, not only in Australia, but in other countries across the world. The advantage of our bikes is that they are lightweight, agile, silent. So it really helps these guys who are sneaking around and doing reconnaissance. A lot of the special forces guys who are jumping out of aeroplanes and helicopters will take one of these bikes with them. They're easy to mount and dismount from a vehicle, which these units are finding very. Units like the sniper regiments, they are also finding them very useful because it accelerates the time for them to complete missions. I can't talk about a lot of that stuff in detail, but yeah, they are finding them very useful and things are advancing. So I did want to bring up another project that we've been working on, which is with Australia Post. So we have spent the last 5 years developing, I don't know what's going on here, developing a delivery vehicle with Australia Post, which to replace their aging postie bike fleet. We've just secured a pilot order for 50 units, which will go out on the road in the next couple of months. And from there, we're looking at ramping that up to replace the 6,000 or so postie motorcycles that are on the road.
Fantastic, John. Thank you. Thank you for sharing, because I know there's a lot of stuff that you can't share at the moment, and it is appropriate on Remembrance Day that you're doing so much work for us to note that you're doing so much work for our Defence Forces. You must love it, do you?
Yeah, I do. And what I didn't get to was another slide, which basically we are not only working with the Australian Defence Force, but also we're heavily involved with the US Army, so the US Army Rangers, Marine Special Operations Command, Air Force Special Operations Command. We have a collaborative research and development agreement with the US Army, and we're also working with the Danish, Swedish, French, Dutch, Singaporean special forces as well. It's me all over the world. Gets me, I think you've lost me again, gets me into places where I never would have thought I'd go, and I get to meet some fairly interesting people through that.
Fantastic. And I know that if we're forming something in the Southeast, that just your expertise in connecting all throughout the world is going to be something that other people are going to learn and grow from as well.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, fantastic, John. Thanks, John. Thanks for sharing your story and your successes with us. We're super proud that it's happening here in the Southeast region. I know that our GSEM team, our CEOs, and all of the team that are in all of those 8 councils are incredibly proud of what's happening. I would now like to introduce you to Bill Gillespie. Bill, it's can pop yourself there. Bill, it's really lovely to have you here. You're the President of Asia Pacific of SEA. And so over to you for your presentation.
Good morning. Thank you for your time. I will attempt to keep to my 5 minutes for the sake of everybody else. So can you see my second slide okay?
Can indeed.
Good to go, thank you. Okay, so SEA Electric was founded in 2012. We operate from Dandenong South, from Advantage Drive. We have 50 people employed there. We have an office in Auckland as well, and an office in Thailand. And I'll talk about our expansion a little bit after that as well, but started in 2012, established the office in Dandenong in 2015. We're about to expand, we hope, to the next door facility, so that we're going to expand our production in that in Dandenong South. We have 200 plus vehicles on the road now, over 1 million service miles, but it's actually in kilometres. So that's a quick overview for us. We're an electric vehicle truck manufacturer. We focus mostly on trucks now. We have got vans running around and some other product, but now we are really focusing on light duty and medium duty truck and building those trucks in Dandenong. Why electric trucks? Really application suitability is around the sort of back to base. So a lot of the trucks that we build and sell are in the waste area on the left-hand side there, targeted at the waste management area where they're going out and doing 1,000 bin lifts in a day and then going back to base. And on the right-hand side there, we've got one of the trucks we've delivered into Woolworths and also into Countdown, which is a Woolworths equivalent in New Zealand. So that segment of home delivery business and back to base business is really what this is targeted at. There's a lot of other applications we've done, and if you look at our website, you can see the different applications, but primarily for us, the focus is around light and medium duty trucks. And the light segment is around 20,000 vehicles a year sold between light and medium duty. The light segment would be 13,000, and that includes car license ability trucks. So trucks that you can drive with only a car license, and that's a huge part of the market. So landscapers, small tipper, work for councils, and then the home delivery trucks. So the customer applications mainly, as I've said there, is first mile, last mile, the last mile delivery. So you can see there's 3 trucks there with IKEA. IKEA have a 2030 zero emission mandate globally. We're working with IKEA. They've got 3 trucks in Sydney, which each of them have done now completed over 100,000 kilometres, and we're working with them. They will be sourcing over 100 electric trucks in the next 2-year period. There was a mention about Australia Post. We're also working with Australia Post on a light duty truck and a medium duty truck as well. I guess the point I would make about Sea Electric versus other manufacturers or other companies that will bring electric trucks to market, which we think is a good idea, by the way. We think that normalizes the whole process. The difference is, of course, that our customers in Australia can work with our engineers in Dandenong on bespoke solutions for their business, which if you bring a truck in from Japan or Europe, of course, that's a limited opportunity. In fact, almost a zero opportunity. So our customers really love the fact they can talk to our engineers and they can customize the drivetrain and the battery ability. We've now expanded into North America. So essentially founded in Melbourne, and now we are in California, in Torrance, California. We have an R&D center in Iowa, a new office in Miami, and a new office coming in Chicago. And we're now working in Europe, out of Germany, on some OEM solutions. So essentially, we're going to be one of 3 companies. So we'll be a drivetrain provider where we just provide the drive system, and we are doing that now in some countries. In Thailand, we're doing that with Hino. In Australia, we've got a fully integrated model, but we also do drive systems, and in New Zealand, drive systems as well. North America will be a mixture of Hino trucks fully built up for that home delivery business with Staples, which is Officeworks equivalent, but scaled up obviously in the US. So we'll be working with those companies as well. So most of the growth will be in Australia and then through Asia. I look after Asia Pacific, but of course there's a bunch of people looking after North America. We started a partnership. My background was with Hino Trucks for 7 years, and whilst I was working at Hino, I started this project working with Sea Electric and a bunch of really smart people at Sea Electric. Glenn Walker's our vice president, who looks after all the engineering. I worked with Glenn on this project. It's a very exciting project where we're selling the trucks through Hino dealerships, but they're actually Sea Electric dealers. So I'll explain where we bring the chassis in from Japan, but this was a world first and a first for Hino globally to ever partner with another company, and they chose Australia. They chose Sea Electric, and they chose to do that with a company based out of Dandenong. These are the dealerships around Australia. These are all full dealers. We offer the full warranty package through the truck and through the dealer. And so you can buy the truck for any of these dealerships. Those trucks are now rolling out to dealers. Similar to a previous caller, our problem hasn't been demand or sales, it's been production. And we're now getting our production running. Next year, we hope to produce 440 trucks. The year after, over 1,000, and the year after that, over 2,000. We'd like to think we can do that production out of Dandenong if we can scale up appropriately. We bring
Bill.
the trucks in.
I'm going to have to give you a 10-second
Okay, all right,
wrap
we'll
up.
go. This is some of the trucks we produce locally. So you can see there, it's a fairly basic assembly line, but we managed to produce those trucks there. This is a home delivery refrigerated truck we just produced, and it's on, 2 of these are on trial with Woolworths at the moment. So fully built up trucks. And that's the installation there, world-class installation standard. Thank you very much.
When you do as much as you do, it's really hard to put that into 5 minutes. So we're grateful to you.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I should have taken a few slides out.
No, it's fantastic. Thanks, Bill. We really appreciate the chance to hear from you. Okay, and as Riz from Carloop has said, all out of Dandenong, go Southeast Melbourne. Your chance, we've got one more speaker and then we're going to move into a panel. We do want to hear from our speaker first, but once we've heard from that speaker from Rod at Lumen, Rod, I'll give you a chance to share your screen. We want to hear from you as well. Tell us a little bit about who you are in the chat box, because you just never know, someone might be looking for some supply chain help. They might be looking for some information. We want to know who you are as well. So give yourself a plug when we've heard from Rod Wilson. Hey, Rod, great to have you here. Thank you for taking part. You're the General Manager of Lumen Freedom.
It's great to be here. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I guess Lumen Freedom, I'll just go through a little bit of history on the Lumen Group as such. They're a family company. Let's get it up there. We've got facilities all over the world. We've been traditionally involved with electronics and harnesses and genuine accessories throughout the world. Back in 2016, we were in contact and did due diligence with Qualcomm Halo to acquire a license for wireless charging. So Lumen Freedom was formed in 2016. The freedom was added because what we're aspiring to is getting the person in the charging operation is free of being tethered to a plug-in charger. So we added that to the title. What is wireless charging? It's wireless electric vehicle charging is known in the industry as WEV-C. And basically the function of WEV-C is to wirelessly charge a vehicle using inductive magnetic charging between a transmitting ground pad and a receiving pad fitted to the vehicle. The current is passed into the ground pad via a power supply and is transmitted across the air gap. And we can provide an efficiency of 92% equal to, and in some cases with correct alignment, some cases better than plug-in. An air gap of 300 millimetres plus, which allows us to provide charging for all vehicles from sports cars right through into trucks. The distance of the air gap is nominated by Z height as an industry standard, Z1, Z2 and Z3. We also cater for any form of misalignment up to plus or minus in the X and Y coordinates of 150 millimetres. The positioning is easily displayed on a HMI in the car or on your mobile phone. And there's no ugly or inconvenient cables and plugs to contend with. Wireless charging comes in 3 formats. It's static, which is your home use and your static parking along the streetscape or in shopping centres, wherever it might be. Then we have semi-dynamic, which is your taxi ranks at the traffic lights and car parks. Then we have dynamic. Now this is the kicker. This is the one which is going to reduce and remove all range anxiety. Back in 2017, a study feasibility was completed in France at Versailles, where there is a number of European countries and automotive OEMs involved in a study called Fabric, which proved out dynamic charging. And vehicles are able to be charged on freeway application up to 120 kilometres an hour. So it removes all form of range anxiety when travelling on big trips, like interstate between, say, Melbourne and Sydney. This is an example of some of the static applications. As you can see, homes, car parks, shopping centres, and for fleets. You've got semi-dynamic, and I'll just mention the semi-dynamic at the moment. If you go to our website, you'll see that we are heavily involved overseas with Innovate UK and London Transport. Included is Nottingham Council, Nottingham University, Leeds University. We are in the final throes of completing a semi-dynamic taxi rank outside the council building in Nottingham. So that's all the way from Australia. We're punching well above our weight. At the same time, we're the only and first and only company in the world to supply to an OEM for wireless charging. And that was to the McLaren Speedtail hyper sports car. And nobody to date has supplied one. And it's fully certified to UL, FCC and IEC standards, the first and only company to achieve that milestone. So where do we go through from here? This is an example of where we'll be in the future. We see it happening. Overseas, the demand for wireless charging is increasing exponentially. We're getting inundated with requests for this to be locked into future OEM contracts. We have vision to 2028 of what's coming, and it's coming with a rush, I can assure you. The one big thing is taxis that roll through the ranks at airports and things like that can't stop to plug in, so they need to be semi-dynamically charged. And that's a big thing with the UK and especially London going towards zero emissions. There's the appropriate safety protocols are adopted by the system. We have what's called a protocol living object protection to the SAE standard, which will protect against any living object within a certain distance from the vehicle. It'll turn off and make safe until that living object is removed, such as a cat or even a person. If there's an embedded medical device or something like that, it'll shut the charging off. We have foreign object detection, which is the SAE standard, and we can detect something as small as a paper clip. And that would notify you on your mobile phone if your charging had stopped, if something metal had gone onto the pad, and it would let you know that you needed to clear the pad in order to continue charging.
Rod, thank you. I'm going to have to give you a 10-second wrap up. This is fascinating.
I just wanted to show you something to leave you with for the future as a bit of a prompter. This is where we see the service station of the future being, where autonomous vehicles, by definition, must be human intervention free. So in the future, autonomous must have wireless. So this is some studies that are overseas and some things being considered. Forget about Shell. There's others looking at it as well, of what they'll do with service stations in the future, where they'll become autonomous hubs. So I'll just leave you with that little thought at the end. Thanks.
Rod, fantastic. Thank you so much. I know a lot of people who are on this call are actually specialists in our both our autonomous and electric vehicle program. But I know that there'll be a lot of people watching the recording because they're interested in EV, electric vehicle and autonomous vehicle technologies. And I would like to say that I just had my mind expanded just thinking about the possibilities. And I know we've got some great responses coming through on the chat. Wow. So what did you think of our showcase? We're not finished yet because we've got a fabulous panel session and we've got some interesting questions to ask, and I want your questions as well for our panel coming up now. Just a round of applause in front of your screen. I know we can't see you right now, but I know that we'll be feeling it for each of our specialists in the Greater Southeast Melbourne region who are specialists in electric vehicle and autonomous vehicle, both production, research, technology, supply chain, end chain. Really impressive. So thank you to each of our speakers, and I'll thank you again a little bit later on. So we have a panel coming up now. We're going to hear from 3 specialists in the region. We're going to hear from Jack Hormus, who is the Managing Director of Textron. We're going to welcome Paul Davis, the Operations Manager from Rectifier Technologies. And we're going to hear from and welcome E4 Falks Williams, the CEO of Cluster Navigators. So we will start with Jack. I'd like to welcome you, Jack, and have you tell us a little bit about Textron. If you've got a share screen there, we'd love to hear that, and grateful to have you here this wonderful morning. Jack, over to you.
No worries. Thanks, Danielle. Look, being a panel here, I didn't think I'd share anything other than have a bit of a chat with you guys as well. But just a little bit about Textron and what we do, and I guess it sort of emulates a little bit of the showcase. But we've been in the region now here for nearly 30 years developing autonomous unmanned aircraft. So we specialise in long range, long endurance UAVs. So initially we were selling off through to the commercial world, through the scientific industries, especially around meteorological soundings. So we're pretty famous for sort of doing meteorological work, especially in typhoons, cyclones, and hurricanes. So we're the only company in the world to have actually flown UAVs inside of those, severe weather events. And so our first one was actually done in 2003, back in over in the east coast of the USA. We were the first company also, or UAV company, to fly across the Atlantic. So that particular aircraft now actually sits in a museum in the United States of America in Seattle. So we're pretty proud of that feat. So we've transitioned the business and pivoted more towards the military these days, where we're still flying a hell of a lot of aircraft and hours especially for our US military. They're our major customer. It's funny, I look at Jim on his bikes doing some great success here in Australia. We found it more successful in the US rather than Australia. Funnily enough, it's somehow breaking into the Australian defence seems harder than ever at the moment, even though there's lots of money around. But we've been flying in Afghanistan and Iraq as well. Our particular air vehicles, we were told at the time, we were the most heavily used air vehicle in the world. We were flying something like 25,000 hours a month. And in the UAV world, that is significant numbers, because you look at things like the Australian Air Force are buying with Triton and their Grey Eagles. They're only going to be doing in the order of 1,000 to 2,000 hours a year. So it's a pretty amazing feat. And we've done that with over the years, where we've sold over 600 aircraft. Now, bringing it into more the EV side of things, we are transitioning also our product to become a hybrid electric and internal combustion engine design, where the air vehicle will be vertically take off and land using electric motors. And so all this technology that we saw earlier is really of interest to me, especially around batteries and electric motors. And so we're always looking for highly efficient and especially equipment that can actually increase our endurance or reduce our weight, because weight is our enemy in our case. Okay. So that's sort of where we're heading. We're situated in Notting Hill here, just behind Monash University, and we always try to collaborate with universities as well. We'd like to also bring in young engineers into our business as interns, and usually the interns stay with us, and we're their first job, and they usually stay with us for somewhere between 5 to 10 years because of the exciting work that we are doing. It's really interesting to be on that cutting edge. Thanks,
yeah,
Danielle.
Fantastic, love it. And that was, you actually answered the question I was going to ask you. It was around, and maybe we'll come back to it later. We'll have a bit of a chat about batteries and how quickly you can adapt and adopt as new technologies, well, after they start to emerge, but as they become commercialised. I might just jump on to Paul. Paul, I know you've got a screen you want to share with us. And welcome to our chat today. I said to you before, Paul Davis is the operations manager from Rectifier Technologies. Paul, go ahead and share and just give us a bit about Rectifier Technologies, and then I'll get E4 to share, and then we'll start having an in-depth discussion.
Okay, thank you very much, Danielle, for the opportunity to share and to be on the panel. I'll just quickly give you an overview of rectifier technologies. We've been in business since 1992, developing high efficiency, high powered electronic modules. We are headquartered here in Melbourne in Burwood. We have our R&D team in Burwood where we do all our design. We do a little bit of low volume, high margin manufacturing in Melbourne. We own a manufacturing facility in Malaysia, and our international sales are done out of Singapore. We've been developing power electronic modules. We started in the telecommunications space, moved into the industrial space. We've done some defence and also scientific instrument power electronic modules. But of more recent times, our technology is well suited for the electric vehicle charging space. And a number of our modules have found their ways into electric vehicle chargers. We supply to other companies that build a range of electric vehicle chargers. And we are just about to bring to market a new large powered module, a 50 kilowatt charging module, which will be able to be used in a range of chargers of different sizes, all the way sort of from the public chargers starting at about 50 kilowatts all the way up to the ultra chargers, which are very popular in Europe and also in Australia as well, the 350 kilowatt units. These modules will also find their way into what's being developed now as what's called megawatt charging systems, which will find their use for commercial aviation and marine electric vehicles, which is quite exciting. And so we're quite proud of this module. It has a number of innovations, including reactive power control, which allows the unit to help support the grid. Also on our development plan is a bidirectional charger, which we're quite excited about. This will be, the initial one will be a 7 kilowatt DC bidirectional charger that can be used in the home. And what's exciting about that is that the next generation of electric vehicles, or even the Japanese electric vehicles, are bidirectional. The European ones from next year will be bidirectional. What that means is not only do they take energy from the grid, they can also put energy back into the grid. Australia is really uniquely placed in the fact that we have so much rooftop solar that we are pumping so much energy into the grid during the day that the price of energy is so super low, and we need ways of storing that energy. So the idea of having a bidirectional charger where you can put energy into a car and then at particular times you can discharge that into the grid or to support your home is really quite an exciting concept. So we are starting to do our work on this development, and we look forward to bringing it to market. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Paul. Great. Fascinating. Love the bidirectional. Is that 1 in 4 homes in Australia has solar? So that's, I think that's the statistic that was being advertised just yesterday. Really appreciate it. We'll come back and talk about some of those things in a moment. E4, welcome to our panel. It's lovely to have you here from all the way from, as I always say, sunny New Zealand, one of the prettiest countries on earth. It's really great to have you here. E4 Fowkes Williams is the CEO of Cluster Navigators, and E4 is a specialist in the development of clusters and has been working with Bremer & Co throughout this process, a very extensive process of identifying what's possible for cluster within the region. E4, over to you.
Daniel, thank you. Let me start this way. As I'm looking wherever it might be in the world, in whatever sector, when I'm looking at an emerging cluster, I'm looking early on for evidence that businesses from within that cluster are servicing global players, are meeting market needs way beyond their home region. And one thing that's come through to me loud and clear over the last hour is a number of your businesses have already cracked that, are already global players. We've heard about Afghanistan, we've heard about Norway, about Iceland, about US, we've heard about many different markets. We've heard about meeting the needs of companies like Hino, meeting the needs in Australia at the moment of IKEA, meeting the needs of global players. So you've passed the first hurdle. You've passed the first hurdle in demonstrating we are doing more than just servicing the local Victorian market. And that is important because businesses in an emerging area such as this, that at the moment are just servicing the Victorian market, haven't got the competitiveness, the competencies to go beyond, could well be vulnerable to an international player that reaches into Victoria. So important to grow your competencies, to grow your home capacities, and lots of evidence that many of your businesses, from people supplying to engaging with Tom Cruise, engaging around the world. It's impressive. So I want to go, woo, good on you. You are not inventing a cluster here. I would call it an emerging cluster, and that's not being rude, it's not being unkind. It's emerging relative to, for example, what I see with drones in Syracuse, New York, where maybe there are 50 drone manufacturers in upstate New York at the moment, and I think it's something like 20,000 jobs there. So they've got scale. But perhaps part of what we're doing in our corner of Australia is identifying particular niches, and maybe niches where we're already demonstrating we are the global player. Let me hold there, Danielle.
Thanks, Ifo. Such encouraging words, and we appreciate your global perspective, as have as you said, many of our speakers here have that global perspective. Talking about a potential cluster, Jack and Paul, feel free to jump in. Do you collaborate with other clusters throughout, because you, as global companies, are you involved in other clusters? What do you think it might look like here in the southeast of Melbourne?
I think there's the potential for collaboration in terms of setting up trials of technology, bringing companies together to instigate those trials. Often, if you take our technology, that can be paired with other technology like energy management systems, then distributors and energy retailers, so that technology can be proved and then taken to the world.
Yeah, I'll add a bit to that too, Danielle. Look, we're definitely keen on working with as many clusters as we can, especially from our perspective in unmanned aircraft. Especially around R&D. So we do work with a lot of UAS type clusters. And what we're noticing though is that they are moving away from internal combustion engines to other technologies, especially around hydrogen fuels and things like that. And so we see the next major advancement in our business being around an alternative form of energy. Obviously, battery technology is one of them, but hydrogen energy is the other we're looking at. So we are looking at ways that we can actually collaborate with other people within those industries.
Yeah, great point, Jack. I mean, there's so much that's possible. I was reading an article yesterday about the car companies not waiting for governments to make decisions, but setting their own targets and each of the brands and which way they're going, and it's quite diverse. To a point that Ifo made before about, and Professor Maria Forsyth made it from Deakin earlier, about manufacturing. So we're doing a lot of manufacturing in Greater Southeast Melbourne versus development of expertise in engineering, in design. Which way will Melbourne go? Which way will Greater Southeast Melbourne go? Do you have a pick for that, Ifo? I might start with you, because obviously it's a crystal ball question, but which way do you see it going?
And it can go both ways. And some companies will be looking, perhaps particularly companies working with relatively short runs, will be looking at local manufacture, and perhaps local manufacture, particularly in developing first generation prototypes. But I sense no problem at all for Victoria if some of the manufacturing is being done elsewhere, or some of the componentry is coming in from elsewhere, be it from Shenzhen in China or wherever is relevant in the world. A key for a company, for an Aussie-owned company, is, does the head office stay in your region? Do the high value R&D activities stay? Do the high value new product development competencies stay? And in part, they will stay, providing you're able to build an ecosystem around them, providing those businesses are saying, and these businesses will be well alert to what is happening elsewhere in the world and saying, hey, what I've got in my home turf here is the #1 ecosystem in the world that supports my particular activity. This is where I'm staying. This is where my home base is. A key for multinational companies is attracting to your corner of Australia multinationals that see Dandenong, that see your region as the go-to region on a global scale for doing R&D, for doing new product development, because that's where the emerging battery technology is. That's because the ecosystem, again, is there around you.
Yeah, I mean, the ecosystem is probably the word of 2021, I think, isn't it? Give or take all the health challenges that we talk about. Paul, how do you find the ecosystem in our region, and where do you find your connections?
Look, we do that through, I guess, business conversations that we have with various companies in the region who have a need for our products, or for companies that we can collaborate with. So really that's done at a sort of a business development level.
Yeah, that's I mean, it's exceptionally important, isn't it? That, I mean, I've referred to it before, and I'll get Jack to talk to it as well. As, I mean, you don't necessarily want to see something when it's commercialized. You might want to know about things before that. You want to, so therefore, having those, as you said, those contacts and connections in through the universities is really important, so that you can plan. Tell me a bit about that, you know, seeing something when it's at R&D stage, and then planning for it to then commercialize and test.
Yep. So I guess we are always looking at the latest technology in terms of power electronics, and assessing that, and trying to work out when it's stable enough to be able to be commercialized. There's a balance of rushing to the market with the latest and greatest, but bringing a technology that's stable and cost effective into the marketplace. So particularly, I guess, from the universities, looking at well-trained engineers, and seeing that development of those skills, so that we have the right skill, that we can access the right staff to be able to continue our R&D work. And that's probably one of the key issues for us, is getting skilled staff to be able to grow R&D.
Yeah, I want to come back to that, Paul. That's a really relevant topic at the moment within the cluster. Jack, did you want to comment there about, you mentioned that you're always on the lookout for different technologies. What are your lead times? Where do you look? Who's your ecosystem? I don't want to give away all your secrets.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Look, we try to collaborate as much as we can with universities as well, especially because they're the guys sort of leading I guess the charge. They're at the forefront of you know, changing what we're currently doing today. And so we're always looking with that. So we collaborate with as many universities as can. So we're working with Monash University down the road, and RMIT, and even with University of Sydney and University of South Australia as well, around various technologies. And the challenge for us though is that there is some great technologies coming up. It's how you, as you said earlier, how do you commercialize that? Because the universities are great at actually doing the research, but then taking it to that next level. That's where they need industry, and there's this yin and yang between who's funding the commercialization and then who owns the IP rights. Do you know what I mean? And so we've got to find a nice balance in there. And I know universities love to own as much IP as they can, but there's got to be a way we can actually challenge universities to continue to do lots of research, but figure out a better way of how to commercialize that and not get too stressed about that. The other comment I'd like to make around that is actually in the young engineers that we try and hire. We try and hire some of the best and brightest, because they're the guys who are also innovating and bringing fresh ideas into the business as well. They're quite passionate, and so we want to keep encouraging that passion when they join our business too, because we don't want to stifle their creativity, because that's what's actually going to make us successful as well.
Oh, there's so many comments I could make there and lead us off. Aoife, I know you're going to want to speak too, and I do want to move into an investment question about what investments needed in the region for now, for in 5 years and for in 10 years. But Aoife, please comment.
Let me pick up on what Jack and Paul have just been referring to. Certainly for any university, great to have the blue sky research. But even more relevant is needs-driven research. And how does a university identify, well, what exactly are the needs? Well, often it is a cluster, it is a network type arrangement that is able to work with a group of businesses and identify where are their collaborative R&D needs. And I'm using the word collaborative here carefully, because it could be collaboration amongst 2-3 companies in a confidential way, or it could be collaboration across the whole cluster, across the whole network. So encourage you here to think about collaboration cluster-wide, collaboration more private, more confidential. It could be, for example, collaboration amongst a number of you in presenting solutions to post offices or mail delivery services, not just in Australia, but around the world. And then perhaps competing between you to actually deliver on that solution. So collaboration can help us get in the door, and then quite naturally we compete in offering different services to meet a particular buyer's needs. So a key word here, co-opetition, in being able to respect each other as competitors, but also able to work through, hey, where can we lever off each other?
Yeah, I love that. And a word I made up a long time ago, collaboration. Let's collaborate to make the industry the best it can. Rising tide lifts all ships, and then let's compete within our strengths within that, with all the respect that comes with it. Let's talk about investment. What's needed? And I'm going to, John's asked a question to the panel about what can or what needs to be done to improve connections, linkages within the Southeast region, or are they okay as they are? And with that, what investments required, do you think, Paul? I'm going to go to you first. I'll come to you, Jack, next.
Look, I think in terms of electric vehicle charging, really there needs to be investment. I mean, the federal government and the state government are investing in electric vehicle charging quite rapidly. I think governments and fleets need to be encouraged to invest in electric vehicles. And I'm particularly passionate about them also looking at investing in bidirectional electric vehicles. And so I think if there is an encouragement for people to pick up that technology, it will then drive business innovation to meet the needs of that. But there has to, for business to develop technology, there needs to be a market for that product to go into. So if there's investment into infrastructure and then but also vehicles, and there's an encouragement for that, then that creates a market and a demand for technology.
Yeah, great. And Paul, that's just good business. That's that how to commercialize things. There must be a market for it. Thank you. Jack, over to you.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts. Firstly, around investment in terms of R&D, for businesses to actually do research, it would be great if there was government funding to help support research and development, especially around failing fast and failing quickly in terms of you know, blue skying ideas and then figuring out they're either crazy ideas or they're really good ones, because sometimes these crazy ideas end up becoming really fantastic ideas. And so in a commercial sense, we're pretty risk averse, and so we're making sure that when we invest our money, we're making sure that we're going to get a sale at the end of the day and get return on that investment. Whereas if there was funding around, you know, failing quickly, around these big crazy ideas, then you'll find that maybe some of those ideas can end up being quite successful if there was sort of mutual benefit between government and industry in investing in those things collectively. So some sort of grant program would be great as well. The other comment I'd like to make also is understanding, I think I said it at a previous meeting, is understanding where we fit in the value chain, or what's our value proposition down here in the southeast. And I sort of look at our history, and you know, that we used to have GMH down at Dandenong, and then I'm nearby the old Nissan plant, which I'm reminded was actually an old Volkswagen in the old days as well. You know, where do we sit? Are we just going to be suppliers into the primes of the car manufacturers, or do we want to move back up the value chain and want to be car manufacturers again? And whilst I applaud C doing, you know, small and medium trucks, you know, do we want to get back into the car manufacturing industry? Because there is a cluster of skills down here in the southeast that can still do that. And I guess I challenge industry and ourselves to say, well, where do we fit in that part of that value proposition?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Jack. E4, can I have a 10-second comment from you and then I'll wrap?
10 seconds. It's great to be able to say that we've got a lead customer in Nottingham with Nottingham Council in the UK, or with London Transport. That's neat, and congratulations. But actually, if that lead customer is one of the 8 local councils that are participating in this, if that lead customer is in some sense the Victorian government, if that lead customer is next door to us, so there's tacit information more rapidly flowing from that lead customer to our home R&D team, then it helps in putting you, in placing you, it helps in enabling you to become a go-to place on a global scale.
Yeah, and that, thanks, C4, what a fabulous comment. There is so much more we could cover here. We could cover the fact that, you know, team talent, challenges, as thanks to the question that we haven't got to there in the region. I have to end it there because you've got things to get to, and it is Remembrance Day and we're heading to 11 o'clock on the 11th of the 11th. I do want to let you all go. Please join me in thanking our panel. I'd really like to say thank you to Jack Cormus, Textron Systems, to Paul Davis. Great to have you here. Thank you from Rectifier Technologies, and to E4 Falks Williams from Cluster Navigators. A big thank you to the 3 of you for answering our questions. I'd love to have got to some more. Maybe that's going to be the next one when we can delve down and drive down deep into some of those challenges that we know we have and what we've got. A few thank yous before I go. Please stay on if you can, so I can just say thank you. Thank you to Greater Southeast Melbourne. I know that they are incredibly grateful to Angela Krepchik and the team at Department of Jobs, Precincts and Regions for their assistance. The staff at DJPR, Mark Lobo and Hugh Brunier, thank you for getting this across the line, this project, and we're really looking forward to hearing more. I would also like to thank our speakers, Ross Durango, Professor Maria Forsyth, Dixon Liao, Julian Broadbent, Aidan Kelly, John Karambalas, Bill Gillespie and Rod Wilson for your contribution and your commitment to today. To Warwick Mary, the Get Events Online team, thank you for running our technology for us today. To John Dean and the team at Bremer & Co, to GSEM and the team, and to the CEOs and the councils and all the teams of the 8 fantastic councils that we have across Greater South East Melbourne. I wish you a wonderful day. I will say to you, lest we forget on this Remembrance Day, go forth and be inspired about the brilliance that we have in Greater South East Melbourne. Good morning.